Yeah, and then if that causes them to, okay, let me again, it's the flesh. You gotta kill it daily. It's not no. It's
That's why they
not
say renew
easy.
your mind every day.
Yes,
You
renew
can't
your
come in the next day
mind.
to the thing you had the
Yes,
day before.
yes,
Renewal of your
yes,
mind,
yes.
What about you,
Nice.
Fee?
Feast?
You said any man?
Well, I'm just.
Oh man.
Keon,
He think-
please,
Okay.
man. Please.
I'm not. I'm just
Please,
saying.
bro.
Putting the right. The right.
I'm keep it real.
right.
No.
Okay. Hell no.
No, bro.
He said any man.
Any man. No.
Man, so you said something.
No.
It is what it is. Some
No,
people. It is what it
man.
is.
He
Some
took
people it is what it
because
is.
he, Dirty Dick Rodney.
And I'm gonna tell you why.
Respect, like no
I'm-
respect. Like
Yeah.
I mean, that's a special journey that not everybody's willing to take, bro. That's just
Yeah.
what it is.
Right.
And you can't force that anybody, and you can't force the other.
Yeah.
Like it's
Right,
just
right.
it's
Yeah.
just got to be for you in that situation, that
And I
journey.
respect it.
Bro.
I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why I asked that question because I've talked to men before who's been some of the biggest slurs you ever met in your
Right.
life.
The business
they-
what?
Slurs.
Slurs.
Whores?
He said whores, but
Okay.
it's S.
Okay.
So basically, okay.
I've never heard that. Sorry.
But then they come across
Slurs.
I was like, what?
slurs or whores, 304s, whatever. But then they tell me, man, but it wasn't until I met my wife. And she was I talked to this one guy, he said, it wasn't until I met my wife, and she was the first woman who ever saw me for who I was. And that made me change a little bit because I ain't never met a woman that I was empty inside. I've lost a lot. I was empty inside. But then when she came into my life, and don't get me wrong, I was already I guess he was already trying to figure it out. But he said, man, first woman who ever saw me for who I was. And he said, it wasn't until I met my wife that it made me change my ways. He said, now you couldn't pay me to cheat now. You couldn't pay me to watch porn or fornicate now. But it took that special woman coming into my life that I didn't even think I deserved. He said when she first got with me, she was almost like the blessing I never thought I could get. Because I was trying to tell her, I was trying to push her away because I had so much guilt. I didn't feel like I deserved a woman like that, but she still stayed and said, you know what? No, you're not going to get rid of me that easy. I'm going to get to know you. I'm going to meet you where you are, and we're going to figure it out. And they did, and they've been happily married to this day. So I'm saying all that to say, I think it's possible, you know what I mean? Because you never know what impact you can have in a person's life because sometimes people ain't going to come in perfect. Nobody's going to come in already, I'm disciplined, I'm ready to honor God now. It don't happen like that. And sometimes it may just take a little time, but he'll get there, especially if he really values the
some
relationship.
people have patience though, and some don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
And some people
like
are called too.
Like if I'm married, but if I had to do it all over, then yeah, I would definitely abstain from it all, and I probably wouldn't date. But then again, my situation is different when it comes to Christianity because I be getting visions and stuff, so I wouldn't know who my wife is before I meat her, so I wouldn't have to try hard. They're just, oh, that's my wife. But
you just date your wife.
it'll be weird, like, oh yeah, God told you my wife. I won't do that, but
But it's funny, man. Like, now people always talk about how amazing God, Jesus is, and they are amazing, you know. But I always wonder, like, it's amazing how a lot of people will not sacrifice their desire for God.
you said they will not sacrifice their desire. Oh yeah.
But he's so real, he's so pure, he's so important. But it's like most people don't want to sacrifice that.
It's not. I mean, it's hard. Well, because even me, like, just because I'm ordained, I'm a minister, doesn't mean I'm perfect or I'm better than anyone else. There's still some vices that I have. There's some things that sometimes I would choose worldly things over God. Should I do that? No. But, I'm not perfect. I'm still human. We all fall short. Look at David, a man after God's own heart. David had issues. We all had issues. Moses had his issues. Abraham had his issues. And Abraham was like the father of the religion, basically. And he had his issues. If you look at every prophet or every man that God used in the Bible, they all had their issues. I forgot the question. I'm going off a tangent. See, that's the preaching thing. Go down a rabbit hole. What was the question?
He was just saying about people not, and I'm just always gonna
People
keep
will
going
not
back
sacrifice
to the
their
flesh.
desire.
Yeah,
They would
because
never
that's
sacrifice
the
their
main
desire
thing.
for God. But God
the
is real.
world-
God protects us, you know.
we
But
live in
people
this
will
world.
not sacrifice their desire.
Here's
It's
the
almost
thing.
like their desire is so much bigger than God, even though it shouldn't be.
Here's the thing. I know we had this conversation off the thing about sin, right? And there's a difference between living in your sin and committing a sin, right? We all sin every day. But the difference is, okay, you have a person who struggles with adultery, right? Okay, this person cheats on his wife once or twice. But he's not living in it, right? So he's like, okay, Lord, forgive me. I'm trying. God, like, take this cup from me. Then he gets delivered from it. He don't do it no more. But then there's also the man who cheats on his wife every single day but have no conviction, right? So the difference is, if you're struggling with, sex before marriage, you're struggling with it, you're struggling with it, it's wrong, but you have that conviction. God knows you. Okay, God knows you're working. He's not. People put God in this box, like, oh, you're sinning, you're going to hell. Yeah. No, God.
I hear that.
God knows your heart.
Going to hell. Yeah.
The thing is, God knows. He truly knows your heart and your intentions, whatever. But it's like, I'm gonna fornicate and not feel anything about it. I don't care. I'm just gonna do it. I have no conviction. That's when you become your sin. But when you start to have that conviction, like, man, I shouldn't be doing this, because when you get that nut and your stomach just sink, and you just like, dang.
But even let's just did
I just
post that clarity?
Yeah.
But just even outside of sex and different things, because it explains in the difference between a child of God and a child of
Satan.
Yeah, a child of Satan in 1 John, and so when you understand that, again, that's why you hear more people and even more pastors preaching about the fruit of the Spirit and the lifestyle, because we do have to examine ourselves. So yes, God does know our heart, but He also called us to be holy, and we can't
keep using that as an excuse.
We can't use that as an excuse. At the end of the day, we can't. And it's like, if you and that's where it goes to, again, I'll talk about the flesh, I'll talk about the mentality and renewing your mind. But when you truly engulf yourself, and really, it's not about what you desire or what you want for your life, is what God, you see yourself how God sees you, and you want to live in that manner or whatever. Yes, you're going to sin, and you're going to feel convicted, and then you'll turn away from it. That is a difference between somebody, first off, not even acknowledging Jesus and acknowledging God, right? Because we know that's there. But then once you do, there is a difference between if you're habitual. So it talks about habitually sinning. If you're habitually in a certain lifestyle, habitually drinking, habitually in different things. So it's not just sex, it's multiple things. A lying, God despises a lying tongue. So when you're habitually doing these things, then you should examine, all of us, we should examine ourselves, like, okay,
what's wrong with you?
Yeah, am I really saved, or am I really in the Spirit? No, because again, if you're habitually doing it, then that's what he's talking about, a lifestyle of sin. It's opposed to feeling convicted. And I tell people, that's half the battle when you do feel convicted. Even in the past, when I would have sex, I felt convicted. In the middle of the act, sometimes I would cry during the act. That's how bad God was like, I need you to stop doing this, my daughter. So you're going to cry in the middle of the act. And the dude's looking at me crazy. That's how convicted, you know what I'm saying? That's why real. I knew I was getting closer and closer to, I need to be delivered from this, right? Like he said, it was a lustful spirit of lust. I had to, because it was just getting to, I was feeling convicted. And then I tell my friends, I talk to people, it's like, that's half the battle. Because to your point, Randy, when people don't feel convicted, then that's where we're talking about, you're in that habitual state that you feel you're so far away from God, you can't even recognize, like, what you're doing is wrong. Because some people don't see that. Or I like what you said before. You said society has conditioned people to think, like, sin, you should be comfortable in your sin. And it's no, you shouldn't. Because at the end of the day, you can read anything in the New Testament, and when Paul was writing to the 7 churches and telling them how they were living, it's very related to what we're going through now. And there was so much things going on in church, and that's why it's such a great guide to tell. It's for you to really fathom how we're being called, or how we're being called to live, or whatever, in a lifestyle, and the fruits of the Spirit in Galatians. That's why it talks about different things. These are the fruits of the Spirit. These are different things. It breaks it all down because it's so relatable to what we're going through right now. And sometimes people be like, "Oh, the Bible's old." It's like, what? The Bible's like a soap opera. If you really get into it, that drama, Sodom and Gomorrah.
They got giants. They got tea.
Sodom and Gomorrah was wild. I say that's the modern day Atlanta. Sorry, Atlanta, but that's the Sodom and
You be
Gomorrah.
reading the Bible like they did what?
Yeah,
Oh,
it was
man.
wild.
I gotta read. I
So-
gotta run that back. They did what?
And that's another thing
So
too. I
that's
want to
my-
highlight too. A lot of people, some people read the Bible, and I don't think a lot of people understand how amazing reading the Bible is. Like the stories in there. So you got so many people out there that don't even know the value of reading the Bible. Because some people always say it's the most. The KKK you read the Bible, but also Christians read the Bible. So
here's
it's a
the
very
thing.
manipulative book.
This
But I
is
don't
why
think people
people-
see the value of reading the Bible.
The reason why a lot of people take it out of context and take it wrong is because if a spirit wrote the Bible, then you cannot understand it with a carnal mind, right?
Gotcha.
So this is why when you read the Bible, if you read it with the Holy Spirit, you get revelations. Like every time I read the Bible, instantly, I'm getting something from it. Because I don't even touch my Bible without saying, okay, God, what are you trying to say to me today? And if I read it without that prayer, I'm not getting nothing from it. But if I sit down and say, all right, I'm about to dive into your word, what are you trying to say to me? Boom, I get something out of it. Now I'm pages and pages of notes deep, and it's 4 hours past, and but
And some people, and I tell people, some people don't know how to read it objectively. They read it subjectively with their feelings
Yeah.
or what they think a God is or why this, and they don't understand it and they're reading it wrong. And it's good to find the best the translation for you. Some people try to understand and break it down with the King James version, and it's like, do you know how hard that is?
NIV, NET.
Well,
sometimes
I
the
love
Message.
Amplified because it
Amplified
breaks
is
it
good,
down
too.
Greek
And
and
I'm glad
Hebrew.
you mentioned that because a lot of
And
people
so-
think it's just a bunch of words and a lot of people fall asleep. But